Hey, what's up, everybody? So coming to you this morning with the Spence versus Danny Garcia announcement and early preview. We're going to talk about, kind of like I said, an early preview of what each guy's been doing coming in, the excitement around this announcement. I mean, everybody's excited about it, a big-time matchup. And, just break down some of the details heading into the fight because this is stuff you guys should know. Now, the fight is taking place on November 21st on Fox pay-per-view. That's a Saturday, just in case everybody didn't know. Most fights happen on Saturday, but no, I said that because a lot of the fights coming back, the ESPN schedule was, a lot of Tuesdays and Thursdays. So people might be, some people might be thinking that fights are going to be taking place on those days on the regular. They're not. I don't mind during the week fights, but I prefer Saturday fights like everybody else. But point being, it will be for the unified welterweight title that is held by Spence. Welterweight, again, my number one division in boxing. Spence currently tied for first with Terrence Crawford as my number one welterweight in the world. Danny Garcia is currently number 6, but I mean, this talent pool at welterweight from 1 to 6 especially, but it's also extends higher than that all the way through the top 10. Danny Garcia very easily is probably like a number 3 in any other weight class, or a number 4, at the worst. Definitely a top 5. And Danny Garcia, I mean, this is such a huge fight for both guys heading in. It really is. Before I get into the overall preview, though, I want to talk about what I want to give some ups here to the PBC and Al Heyman. Aren't always my favorite people because they don't work with, they don't cross the street and work with a lot of the other guys with big names as much, but I'm very impressed with their release of their schedule last week, for Showtime, and now they're going to start releasing their Fox schedule, I believe, which is, what this one has, this one is going to Fox pay-per-view. I think we're going to see a lot of good Fox cards taking place before the end of the year, but this is a huge one right here. It really is. You can't beat pay-per-view. And also, I want to give ups to Spence and Danny Garcia and Al Heyman and the PBC for doing this fight without Manny Pacquiao announcing his next fight yet, because everybody knows Manny Pacquiao is still the biggest name in this division. He's the most desired fight. He might be more desired now than he ever was because he's in the twilight of his career. He's older. He's still a world champion. He's still legitimate. So if you were to beat Manny Pacquiao, one, it's more possible to beat him now than ever because he's not in his prime. But two, he's still good enough to where people aren't going to knock you for beating an old guy, because Pacquiao is very good and can beat most guys in this division. But again, the division orbits around Manny Pacquiao and what he's going to do next. So I know Spence and Danny Garcia were both real options. I did the top 10 welterweights, my mid-year review, and Danny, in my opinion, was his number 2 option, and Spence was his number 3 option. Mikey Garcia was his number 1. Now, there are some rumors about Conor McGregor possibly making a super fight with that, but in terms of real boxers, I had Danny as a very real number 2. I think he's just as big, possibly overall bigger name than Mikey Garcia. And Spence has pretty much a bigger name than both guys. So I was impressed that these two guys and the PBC and Al Heyman came together and said, we're not waiting for Pacquiao. We're big enough names. We'll fight each other. They also probably got some direction that Pacquiao wasn't interested in fighting them, or he was just kept, putting it off. But either way, these guys made the announcement to get it on November 21st, and I can't wait. I think it's going to be a very good fight. There's a lot of questions looming, though, about this and, what is going to happen in this fight. Now, I do think it's a very even fight, very close, it could go either way is what I'm saying. But let's look at both guys. We'll start with the favorite going in, which is Spence Jr., the unified champion. I think he should be the solid betting favorite going into this fight. But are we going to see the best Spence in this fight? The reason I say that is, one, he already had questions looming. regarding his 2019 year, which, you know, at the same time ended up being his best year as a fighter, but it was because of his accomplishments, not because it was because of his wins, but not in the manner that he won those fights, if that makes sense. And the reason I say that is the Mikey Garcia win, I don't think, most experts, myself included, you know, weren't surprised that he beat Mikey. That was the biggest name, you know, on his resume at the time. And, you know, a lot of people were, local people where I live in California, but most boxing experts weren't expecting Mikey Garcia to move up 2 weight classes and beat Errol Spence. So when Errol Spence dominated Mikey, nobody was surprised by that, you know, at all. But he didn't knock him out, and a lot of people were surprised by that, myself included. And he even admittedly said that he took his foot off the gas pedal a little bit, you know, that he could have finished him. I think that would have sent a stronger message. Then he fights Sean Porter, where he went in a considerable favorite into that fight. I think people believe that his overall talent and aggressiveness and boxing ability was going to overwhelm Sean Porter. I know I felt that way. I even, when I made my predictions on the Sean Porter fight, I said, I think Errol Spence is going to stop Sean Porter. And Sean Porter doesn't get stopped by anybody. He barely gets hurt, to be honest. But, I mean, I felt Spence was going to knock Porter out. Now, he did knock him down later in the fight, but he got tested. He won a split decision. That's no shame in that. I mean, Sean Porter, in my opinion, you could argue he's top 10, top 15 pound for pound. He's that good of a fighter. And he can take punches. So, but the question after that fight for me was, is Errol Spence still really that good? Or is he more on the level of the rest of the guys at 147? And Sean Porter is still legit, but we know how legit he is because he's actually fought a lot of guys in the top 10 of the welterweight division. Errol Spence has not. So those were looming questions already for me. Even though I think Spence is a great fighter. I really enjoy watching him fight. But then he had the bad accident where he rolled his car and he got ejected from the car. Sustained injuries, but not career-threatening. And, you know, so what did that mean for him? What does that mean for him heading into this fight now? He's also going to be coming off a 14-month layoff by the time he gets back in the ring. Those are big, big things. Are we going to see the best Errol Spence on November 21st? I think that's a huge question that we're not going to know until the night of the fight, you know? Mentally, how did that fuck with him? How did that mess with his psyche? And is he going to be gun shy a little bit? Is he going to be kind of have a little bit of PTSD from the accident? You know, those are all possibilities right there, man. They really are. And we just don't know how it's going to affect them. I think that decreases his chances of winning. I'm not making a prediction because I don't do that until later. But, you know, that definitely can do that. And it's a dangerous opponent for a decrease in your chances of winning when you face a guy like Danny Garcia. You know, it really is. Errol Spence, great fighter, the unified world champion, but he hasn't been that, to me. I don't feel like he's been an overwhelming guy, like, even though he had a great 2019. 2018 was kind of a soft year. I believe he only fought once, if I'm right. And then, well, no, he ended up fighting twice, but weren't huge fights. But he stopped Lamont Peterson. That was impressive. But you go back to 2017, since he won the world title by stopping Kell Brook in that fight. Stopped Lamont Peterson later. Since then, you know, and then I think he fought some guy named Carlos Ocampo and stopped him in the first round. But since then, those 2 fights last year, he just hasn't seemed like he's been that big blitzing power guy, and that's what I want to see it. But Danny's got a great chin. He always has. Danny's never been stopped. I don't think Danny's ever been put down, to be honest. So, you know, those are big-time questions, and can he, you know, go in there and be the best version of himself? I don't know. It's a tough one, and that makes the fight closer. Now, let's look at Danny Garcia. Now, Danny, last couple years, ever since, you know, we'll go back to the 2018 loss to Sean Porter. Very close fight. I called that fight. I said Sean Porter would win a very close fight, and he did. Danny was very much into that, though. Danny does not get blown out most of the time. Even the fight with Keith Thurman, I thought he got outboxed. I thought it was a clear decision. Judges thought Danny did enough for a split decision, but he didn't get blown out in that fight. He stood his ground. He fought well. You know, Danny, to me, has proven that he is a very good fighter. I still don't think he's a great fighter, but I think he's very, very good. He's won titles in 2 weight classes, 140 and 147. He is a very seasoned and all-round fighter. You know, he's coming in the underdog into this fight, and he's come in the underdog more often than Errol Spence has come in a big fight as a favorite. Let's be honest about that. That is the truth. Danny was the underdog against, somewhat the underdog against Sean Porter. That was a very even fight. He came in the underdog against Keith Thurman. You know, Danny has been there before. He came in the underdog against Amir Khan. You know, when he fought a big-time fight against Kendall Holt, came in the underdog. That was years ago. You know, Danny is used to that. Came in the underdog against Lucas Matisse. You know, Danny is no stranger to being the underdog, to people doubting him. He's got a big base, and he is not afraid to fight. And I think he has a very good chance of pulling off the upset, even though he's the underdog coming in. Now, what has he done the last couple years since the Porter loss? He destroyed Adrian Granados, which was, I don't think people were surprised that he won. This was 2019. I don't think people were surprised that he won, but the manner in which he defeated Granados, who's always a tough guy who could take shots, I mean, he absolutely dominated him, and he stopped him. Then he follows it up, though, in January with, you know, I think he was overlooking Ivan Redkach, and he walked away with the unanimous decision. He still cleanly outboxed him and beat him, and definitely hurt him multiple times, but couldn't put him away. So what does that mean for this fight? I don't really think it means much. I don't think the time off in between is going to hurt Danny. Danny's used to taking 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 months off in between fights. Most of Al Heyman's guys with the PBC, he's got them trained on that 6, 7, 8, 9 months. You know, it's going to be a 10-month layoff in between fights. I don't think that's going to hurt Danny at all in terms of ring rust. I think he'll be coming in the fresher of the two guys. So, you know, again, I think that increases his chances of winning and decreases Errol Spence's chances of winning the fight. So, you know, it's very close to a 50-50 fight. I definitely think it could go either way. And I really can't wait to see these two guys go toe-to-toe on November 21st. What styles are they going to implement? How aggressive are they going to be? And who's going to walk away the man? I mean, you know, unified world champ, you know, put you in line for Manny Pacquiao, for Terrence Crawford. You know, there's mandatories due, but just this division is the best division in boxing for a reason. And pretty much as I think I still think Terrence Crawford is the best fighter above all at 147, but I think the winner of this fight is considered the top dog in the division, and the reason why is because they're with the PBC, and the PBC has every guy except for Terrence Crawford among the top fighters. So, you know, it's big. The guy who wins this fight is definitely swinging a big dick in the division. There's no doubt about that. He'll hold 2 title belts and be coming off, and both guys, a win for either guy would put them at number 1. I honestly believe that. If Danny were to pull off the upset over Errol Spence, I'd probably shoot him to number 1, him or Sean Porter, because Porter beat him, but it was close, and he beat the guy that beat Porter, which is Spence. If Spence wins the fight, he's absolutely the number 1 guy. After the year he had in 2019, I'm very, you know, close to putting him at number 1 anyways. But he definitely would have the nod over Terrence Crawford, unless Crawford went out and beat Pacquiao and actually got the Pacquiao fight. So definitely, you know, a big, huge fight right here, guys. You don't want to miss it. And I guarantee you that the PBC is not going to let you down on their undercard. It's going to be pay-per-view. You're going to see a good fucking undercard with these guys. So make sure you pay attention. November 21st, Fox pay-per-view. I'll definitely be doing something at my house. Can't wait for this one. Danny Garcia challenging Errol Spence Jr. for the unified welterweight title. Hope you guys enjoyed this. True Boxing, you've been hit with the truth.